so much to augment intelligence? What areas do you see that do you see anything that's out there right now? Is certain types of research that would have, say, in the next 2-3 years, some potential for augmenting intelligence?
Well, I do think that even things like the gaming interface, the headset, is important because it will help introduce people, on a much wider scale, like in the millions, to just the fundamental idea of using a brain-computer interface to manipulate some aspects of a game. I mean, if people use that brain-computer interface to play games and do so successfully, then it will be brought into millions of living rooms, and that could change the attitude that people have in general about brain-computer interfaces and cause them, for like instance, the investors among them to devote more money towards serious intelligence enhancement. But these things move slowly. Anything involving manipulating the human brain has to go through so many regulatory hurdles that it could be 10 to 20 years from the time that you hear the first glimmers of the technology being possible and actually being commercialized, if not more. So I think that we're still doing baby steps in that direction, but personally, when it comes to breaking the threshold of human intelligence, I look to AI, less so brain-computer interfaces right now.
AI more so than brain-computer interfacing?
Yeah, I think that
okay.
Standalone AI is probably more likely to cross that threshold before brain-computer interfaces do.
Okay, yeah, and one thing that I was thinking about as you were talking about that is how long it does take for some technologies to be adopted because of regulations, but it be also because of economic factors. How much have you seen that as far as advancing technology goes? The one thing I notice is with Kurzweil's predictions is that he seems to be mostly technically correct as far as what technology is possible or how soon it is developed. His timeline seems to be pretty correct, except for the fact that not all of it is going to be widely accepted. Like you said, anything that has to do with going inside the human brain is going to have a lot of regulatory hurdles. Now, I know you mentioned artificial intelligence, but what aspect of advancing technology here, the newest technology, would have the lowest regulatory hurdle or the lowest economic barrier for implementation?
Definitely AI, because if you think about it, I mean, you create a simple software program that you call, your embryonic AI or whatever, and you can do whatever you want to it. I mean, you can manipulate, basically do what's analogous to intensive brain surgery on that AI, and not, have to answer to the FDA about it. And I
was thinking. I guess, now that you mentioned it, it does make a lot of sense because is there any government agency that regulates AI development?
No, and I'm not sure if there should or there shouldn't be, but it's just cheaper to run things in code. It's all virtual than to deal with actual flesh,
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. What about the fear that people have that AI is going to run away with things? Then, if we don't augment our own intelligence first, AI is just going to become super smart and take over the world, and we're done.
I think that isn't so widespread, but the number one promulgator of that perspective would be Stephen Hawking. So he's not a lightweight, obviously.
Oh, right.
People take his ideas seriously, but it's another one of those cases where you see someone that is kind of stepping out of their expertise, a physicist who's starting to comment on futurist issues. So he might be taken a lot more seriously on his latest musings about black holes than his latest musing that AI needs to be kept in check by enhanced human brain, human intelligence.
Okay.
I think that the perspective, the notion that AI necessarily needs to be our competitor or our challenger, is born of science fiction stories, and they usually
the Terminator, like the Terminator.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched the movie from 1920s. It was a German expressionist film called Der Golem, and it was about the story of the golem, and this idea of a lifeless automaton taking control of threatening human beings, not just back to the Terminator. It's actually thousands of years old, so the deep-seated fear of that. But I don't think doesn't necessarily need to be the case. I think if we are careful about the way that we create AIs, they could be on humanity's side rather than against it.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing too. You know, in the United States, particularly, artificial intelligence is always treated, almost always treated on the negative side. Whereas Japan, a good example where technology is always, most often the friend of human beings, or AI. So yeah, kind of culturally related there. I would just want to take a short little pause here to remind everyone that's tuning in this evening. If you have any questions for Michael, go ahead and shoot. I don't know if you're aware, Michael, but we do have a chat box that runs simultaneously with our live streaming broadcast. So people who are tuning in and viewing can ask questions. The topic tonight, of course, for all of you is the technological singularity, other futurist or nanotech issues, and also any questions about for Michael Anissimov, who's the co-founder of the Immortality Institute, about what he thinks about the institute or Lifeboat Foundation, which he works for now. A lot of different topics related to the future, nanotech, transhumanism, all of that. And we do, in fact, have a question I see. What are some? Okay, pretty broad question here, Michael. Comes from Richard. Lise, good member down there with the H Plus group in Tucson, Arizona. What are some of the trends in transhumanism today? Because I know you probably you came out of the scene late 90s, early this century, kind of, as far as transhumanism goes. And then in that time frame, how have things changed, and what are the current trends nowadays? What do you see?
Oh, well, first I'd like to say hi to Richard Lace, and I'm really impressed with what H Plus has done down in Tucson, Arizona. It's basically become a hotbed of transhumanists in that local area.
Yeah, way
and
to go,
that's through
Richard.
their group.
Way to go.
So I really admire what they've done. How the trends of transhumanism changed in the last 7 years? I think it's actually hasn't changed very much, remarkably. I mean, all the fundamental issues are still in place. Some new organizations have been founded, for instance. Basically, it tends to revolve around the organizations and projects that are launched. And so we can see, like today, for instance, the Methuselah Foundation has received worldwide media attention. That means like it's increased in significance relative to other projects within transhumanism. And it's being the most transhumanist, like the most successful transhumanist-oriented group. We've seen the Singularity Institute do pretty well with the very well-covered Singularity Summit conferences here in the Bay Area. And so I think that a lot of what has changed in transhumanism has to do with who's getting in the media, and also how much money are people raising, or how many new members are organizations getting. And I think that in the last 7 years, it hasn't really been the qualitative changes, more quantitative in terms of funding dollars, eyeballs. In general, transhumanism has gotten a lot more attention in the last 5 to 7 years. I think we need to be more careful about the way that we present ourselves to the public, because in the past it was more like a small subculture, and now it's being like a tentative mainstreaming movement. So I think we have to be very careful in the way that we move forward.
Right. Yeah, I would say I agree with you there that it seems like more people are